So now for the second half of lunch, you have two choices. You can either remain here, where we're going to have 60-second elevator pitches from each of our 10 Innovation Showcase finalists. And this is a great way to quickly orient yourself to what their offerings are. And I think you all know that they're down in Skyline A and B. And so during the breakouts, you can visit them. And the other option is that you can go to a fireside chat. This will be led by McKinsey. And this is going to be a fireside chat with CIOs about modernization, transformation, and resilience, and that'll be in Skyline C, D, and E. And with that, let me introduce Anton Tedescu. He is a business development and innovation consultant, and he is also the chair of the Innovation Showcase and has been doing it for many years. So please join me in welcoming Anton.
Does this actually work? Yep, so it does. Thank you, Alan. And as you said, my name is Anton Teodorescu, which I used to actually crack a joke about my name, but after meeting some of the people recently, and even some of the ones on the showcase, I'm no longer a top contender for the longest name, so I'll skip that. But who am I and why am I here? I've been working with startups and investors for some 15, 20 years or so, having been in the IBM Venture Capital Group at some point. And as you heard, the conference has been running for about 20 years, and after a few years of running it, we decided that to you as a CIO, what's really relevant, there's a lot of intellectual firepower here at MIT, but you're not writing a dissertation. What you need is the knowledge and the tools to make all this relevant to your role and hopefully affect the strategy, the operations, and ultimately the competitive standing of the company in the industry. So we thought we would do that basically two ways. First of all, you hear the street level knowledge and experiences of the CIOs on the panels. And secondly, by bringing up the innovation, which, you're at MIT, so most people tend to think of MIT obviously as technology and innovation. But what it's embodied in is, most people have seen the beaver logo, which, shows up on a lot of people's fingers. But its motto is also mens and manus, which really is the Latin verbalization of that, if you will, going from mind to hand and really from theory to implementation. So what we thought is we would select every year 10 startups that we think are most relevant to you and create this informal environment for you to get to meet them. And you may decide that they're a little early this year. Maybe if not, in a year or two, you may want to go back and talk to them, or they may apply right away. And so far, we've actually had a very good track record. If you look at the page with the where are they now, we've had quite a few very successful exits, including a few unicorns, which this year you can decide for yourselves which one might be the next one. But the whole idea was to bring a range of solutions and in particular make them relevant to your role, which I think you've heard that this is the 20th year for the conference. It's also the 13th year for the showcase. And the number 13 opinions are divided, but I think for you and for us this year, it's actually hitting the jackpot. It's very lucky because there's a great lineup of companies, and ranging from anything from mobile app development to artificial intelligence to, you've heard this morning, the need and the issues related to regulation, from data protection, security, and bill of materials, and or passing audits, for instance, right? So, as well as, let's say, the newer trend in development, the WebAssembly side. So, anyway, with that, the whole intent was to let each company do a 1-minute pitch to give you a highlight of what they do, and hopefully pique your interest to go and get to meet them in more detail. And again, whether it's this year or in a year or two, you might actually develop a bigger and deeper relationship with them. So, with that, let me get out of the way and introduce the first one, what's Alpha Software. And Dave McCormick is going to be here to take up the mic and continue the dance.
All right, 60 seconds. This should be fun. First of all, thank you very much. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product at Alpha Software. We're based here just outside of Boston, and we are in the low-code, no-code space for building web and mobile applications for commercial purposes. We do specialize somewhat in the manufacturing space, but we are really a general-purpose product, which means that we're going squarely against companies like Microsoft, Google, Siemens, and some others. As a small company without a lot of marketing, innovation has been the only way we've been able to keep our company afloat and has allowed us to grow. And we do that using a process that I call managing our visionaries. I don't have time to get into it now, but it's a method of making sure that all ideas are heard and the best ideas float to the top without egos being bruised. So if you have any interest, you can email me directly, dave@alphasoftware.com, or visit our website, or come by our booth. Thanks very much.
Look, we all know security breaches are inevitable, and so what I propose is, why don't we just make data theft irrelevant? So I used to be a CISO and a CIO, and across my organization, there is a lot more I would have done to secure and protect my organization, but one thing stood in the way: end users. It appears that ultimately it's easier to give a cat a bath than it is to get an end user to change the way they do things. Anchor exists to actually end the war between business and security. It no longer has to be a choice. We're a data security platform built on zero trust principles that gives our organizations the control and ownership required to make data theft irrelevant with the transparency and simplicity that their users demand. We're a SaaS platform that combines profile encryption, digital chain of custody logging, and our patented data heartbeat technology to ensure that access is continuously validated in real time, including revoking that access to files, even if they're open. And while this differentiates us from everything else on the market from a technical perspective, which makes my investors really happy, our superpower is the fact that we deliver a truly invisible, transparent end user experience. Because at Anchor, we firmly believe that stopping the bad guys shouldn't mean stopping the business. I want to introduce Fermyon next.
Hello, I'm Matt Butcher, the CEO of Fermyon, and we are building the next wave of cloud computing with WebAssembly. Now, one thing we hear from developers is that they really like the emerging serverless functions way of writing software. It allows them to skip over all of the boilerplate code and really dive right into the business logic. But they tell us that the current implementations are lacking in three major ways. The first one is vendor lock-in. They write their code and they can only run it in one place. The second is performance. Current solutions are fairly slow. And the third one is developer experience. In spite of the fact that they just need to write one function, the process of building and deploying this kind of platform often takes far too much time and is fraught with peril. So we built Spin, a developer platform for the next wave of serverless functions. With Spin, the developer can go from blinking cursor to deployed application in 2 minutes or less. Powered by WebAssembly, Spin applications have a cold start time of around 1 to 2 milliseconds. Now, if you contrast that with AWS's Lambda at 200 to 500 milliseconds per cold start, then you see 2 orders of magnitude improvement in speed. Furthermore, we can run thousands of WebAssembly applications powered by Spin in the same hardware or virtual machine profile that one could only run maybe 10 to 20 containers in the Kubernetes ecosystem. Now, it's important to be able to deploy these things anywhere to avoid vendor lock-in. Spin applications can be deployed on the developer's laptop, on-prem, even in Kubernetes clusters like Azure AKS, into Docker Desktop, into Fermyon Cloud, and even on into small profile IoT class devices. So if you'd like to learn more about Fermyon and how we're defining the next wave of cloud computing, head over to fermyon.com or stop by our booth. Thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce Sujesh from Kinnami.
Hello. Traditionally, almost all data processing has been done in a data center. Now we're building a world that's increasingly reliant on data processing at the computing edge, on satellites, drones, IoT, sensors, and so on. Distributed data management at the computing edge faces several challenges, having to deal with many more millions of devices at the edge, to working in communications degraded environments, to securing data where there's no physical security. Good afternoon, I'm Sujesh Krishnan, CEO of Kinnami. At Kinnami, we've purpose-built a distributed peer-to-peer data management and security software platform that enables better data protection, data security, and data availability at the computing edge, and then transitioning all of that to the cloud. Now, with our technology, you can now safely secure and manage data on any device, even if it has less physical security than a data center. We're a dual-use company with focus both in the defense markets as well as commercial markets, such as smart cities, critical infrastructure, autonomous systems, robotics, and space. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be part of the Innovation Showcase, along with all of these other cutting-edge companies. If you're interested, feel free to stop by our booth. At the very least, we'll have a good conversation. Thank you, and have a good afternoon. And I want to introduce Jason from Kognitos.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Langoni. I'm part of the team at Kognitos. We are the most impactful way to apply generative AI to your business. We are a process automation company that have woven generative AI and natural language into our core architecture, which has made two significant impacts on the business of our customers. The first is time to value. The second is operational efficiency. When you think of automating business processes, typically in the traditional world, you have to plan every scenario up front, because when something unexpected happens, the automation crashes and burns, generates a support ticket to IT, somebody somewhere has to bang out some code. Instead, in the world of Kognitos, when something unexpected happens, an invoice amount doesn't jive with what's in Oracle Fusion or what's in SAP, instead, we generate a prompt that is delivered to a business user, the person most likely to know the answer anyway. They answer the question, the automation resumes, and Kognitos has learned a little bit more about that organization. So the next time that situation occurs, we have greater intuition. The second is when you think of historically who's been able to build the automations, it's been those that understand .NET or Python or JavaScript. In the world of Kognitos, the automations are built in natural language, everyday English phrases, which means anybody can look at an automation in Kognitos, understand what it's doing, modify it as needs change over time, and even audit it for compliance sake. For the local Bostonians, I petitioned our marketing team to change the slogan on our pop-up to Jason Tatum of generative AI, coming up clutch when it matters most, shot down. So with that, if you have questions, feel free to stop by the booth. Feel free to go to Kognitos.com. We've got a lot of good content there. Up next, please welcome Brian from OpenSSF, who will talk about securing open source software. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like I have the wrong slide, but I'll jump in anyways. Hi, I'm Brian Bellendorf. I'm the CTO for the Open Source Security Foundation, and I'm guessing most of you had a pretty lousy winter 2021 thanks to this thing called the Log4Shell breach, which was in a tiny component most of you probably didn't realize you run called Log4j. The good news is open source software is everywhere. All of you are benefiting from it. The bad news is its security and quality tends to vary pretty substantially one project from another, and the ugly news is that all of you are as responsible for it running in your infrastructure as your own home-built code. The OpenSSF is a 3-year-old membership-based nonprofit. We're part of the Linux Foundation, which is about a 20-year-old not-for-profit as well. We're committed to reducing the risk of the next Log4Shell, the next Colonial Pipeline, the next SolarWinds, by reducing the risk in critical open source software and hardening the software supply chain. We do this by developing software tools and standards for supply chain traceability that have become the standard in the cloud-native ecosystem. And are working their way into upstream ecosystems and the major DevOps tool chains in the world. We also develop tools for measuring criticality and risk in the use of open source software, and then use that to direct investment into open source projects along the lines of third-party auditing or capacity building at other major open source foundations. But there's so many more things that we do. I could talk about 60 different initiatives in 60 seconds, but I won't. All of our work is freely available. You'd be foolish not to take advantage of it, so please at least do that. Our work is supported by 100 member organizations who do receive direct benefits for being a part of the organization and collaborate to set the strategic direction of our efforts. Check us out at openssf.org. And with that, I'll hand you to Brian from Obscura. Sorry about that. Thanks. Come on down, Brian.
Thank you, Brian number 1. I'm Brian number 2. You also meet Brian number 3. So, show of hands, how many people here have OT in their environment? Great. How many people here know what OT is? So, we're Obscura. I'm Brian Braumeyer, and we're one of the fastest ways to secure your OT network without having to reconfigure or re-IP your network. When you built your plant, facility, things like a hospital, refinery, assembly line, or warehouse, it was probably not envisioned the level of IT security or security in general that you'd have to conform to, especially considering the increased regulation requirements. Your cyber teams are already stretched thin, and even if they weren't, many of them don't necessarily understand OT and OT's complexities. The methodology to secure OT is very different than IT. You can't just patch your way out of it. A lot of it has to do with attack surface reduction, as well as a strong understanding of the net flows in the network. Also, things like forever day vulnerabilities are very common in the OT environment. Windows XP or even Windows 2000 are common in these environments. You could also consider things like an MRI machine that's still functionally available to the business, but no longer receives security updates. So we have a drop-in solution that provides a high level of security for all the above issues while continuing to increase the life of your investment for your products and your production line, minimizing disruption while securing those systems as well. So we provide attack surface reduction to protect your most critical and most valuable assets, not simply visibility to see where the breaches have occurred, but to actually stop them. Our drop-in protection deploys within hours, not months or years, and without taking your process offline, or reconfiguration or re-IP. Please stop by our booth and chat with us if you'd like to talk about expediting your security for your OT networks. Thank you very much, and with that, I'll turn you over to Title Lift.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Kolb. I'm an account representative for TideLift here, and much like B2 or B1 said, I stole a lot of my thunder here as it relates to open source. So, as many of you know, probably 90% of your applications use some form of open source. And of those applications, about 70% of that code is open source. So, what happens when something breaks within the open source community? Who's going to fix it? TideLift has taken a proactive approach to pay the maintainers to withhold a certain enterprise standard. So users and developers like yourself are working from a known set of good before developing their applications, right? Traditionally, we have the scanning technologies today that come later in the development life cycle that can diagnose but not remediate, right? So what TideLift does is take a proactive approach, allows you to work from a known set of goods. It provides you the tools, data, and strategies that help organizations assess the risk, improve the health, security, and resilience of all things open source. Stop by the booth or find us at tidelift.com. Next is Tejas from TrustCloud.
Hello, I'm Tejas from TrustCloud. I've been in multiple companies selling software to enterprises, and as part of that, gone through dozens of compliance audits and answered hundreds of security questionnaires. And if any of you have done those things, you know everybody hates them. CIOs and CISOs have a really tough job on one hand of protecting their business, and on another, of showcasing how they're providing ROI to justify budgets and spend. We built Trust Cloud to help you turn GRC into a profit center by doing 3 things: saving you time and cost of compliance audits, automating security questionnaires with AI, and reducing liability with programmatic risk assessments. With Trust Cloud, you will never again spend a Friday night answering a security questionnaire. If you want to know how, stop by our booth or visit trustcloud.ai. Thank you. Next up is Chet from Zluri.
Okay, the last one over here. Hi everyone, my name is Chaitanya. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Zluri. Zluri, simply put, is a SaaS management platform. We help organizations discover all the applications that are currently there in your environment, understand which employees are using these applications itself, and get into details around, hey, what sort of roles do they currently have, what sort of license did I purchase, more importantly, how much am I spending on these particular applications itself. What we've usually seen these days is companies spend a lot of money on these applications itself, and more importantly, they don't understand if people are actually using these applications itself or not. Now, where we help out over here is we understand the usage of these particular applications and provide all this information in one single dashboard. With this, we start giving out more and more insights itself on helping companies around managing their costs a lot more better. We typically save anywhere between 20 to 30% of your money that you're spending on these applications and the cost itself on these contracts. We help you automate all of these particular scenarios itself to ensure that you are possibly reusing these particular applications itself or reusing these licenses a lot more better. And more importantly, we come to the security side of things itself, wherein people, with the open internet that's currently there, people go ahead and sign up to these random applications itself that are currently on there online, share important companies' data. We call that a shadow IT. We help companies understand which users are using these shadow IT itself with these random applications, and more importantly, what sort of data is essentially being shared with them. The last, which is very, very important for us, is we help you automate all of these particular parts completely through Zluri. So tomorrow, if you want to essentially do user access management, ensuring that you give provision to these particular applications or deprovisioning the licenses or access to these applications itself, that's completely done from Zluri itself. So when a particular person is joining your organization itself, giving access to these 20 to 25 applications on a single day, on the first day itself, within a couple of minutes, is easily automated itself. And similarly, when the last day itself, we ensure that all the access across all the systems is remote easily itself and securely. So with that, if you need more information itself on what we do, please reach us out to the booth. With that, I'll give it back to Anton.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Chet, and most importantly, thank you to all the startup companies who came here, because some of them have traveled quite a range and from pretty far and wide. East Coast, Midwest, California. Chet actually just flew in from Bangalore, although they do have a presence in California as well. But most importantly, thank each and every one of you for being here, because without you, it would be kind of a lonely event, and we might not be able to call it a symposium. So glad you're here, and hopefully you enjoyed it and found at least a couple of companies that might pique your interest enough to go back, talk to them, and see whether this might develop into something further down the line. So anyway, for those who are virtual, sorry you're missing the one-on-one experience, but if you go to the Innovation Showcase page of the website, you will find the companies, and if there's anyone that looks interesting, feel free to get in touch with them either directly or through us. We'd be happy to make the connection. And finally, for anybody in the media, they are a captive audience in the room, in the Skyline room, for the rest of the day, so feel free to go talk to them and, again, see which ones you might actually want to go into more detail on or write up something to let more people know about them. So thank you once again for being here. If you've enjoyed your lunch, then wait to see what we've got for you at the reception, so be back here at the end of the day, and hopefully we'll feed you and give you drinks even better and more. So thanks with that, and I guess enjoy the rest of the day.